Askew, and I'm here with my wonderful guest today, Chaz Kemp. Welcome, Chaz.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to tea.
Thank you
So
so much. I'm so happy and honored to be here.
Oh, I'm so delighted that you are able to join us. We have been speaking off and on for years now, at mostly at TUSCon because we both attend TUSCon, and we've been on panels together, and I've gotten to see your gorgeous art and like lust over your gorgeous art and all of that sort of thing. But we've never gotten to just sit down and have a proper conversation about your experience of being an artist and making an artist and your influences. And so I'm very excited that today we get to dive into your art experience. And Chaz, you started a project recently, so we get to talk about that too. You're doing this new magazine for gamers.
I
You've
am.
got a lot going on.
I
So
do. I do. Well, the magazine in question is called Shadowcat Magazine. And it's a magazine that's basically for tabletop role-playing games. And ultimately it's for people that enjoy creating their own worlds, but they also want a gaming supplement that helps them out with a game they're already playing. So it's not its own system, it's system neutral. So every issue of the magazine will have basically three monsters, three NPCs, three places, and three items. And each entry has basically a D20 chart of just different random things that, oh, that hat could be this or it could be that, and some lore about it and everything like that. And of course, everything has an image with it, a picture, an illustration that is done by me.
oh, and listen, I've seen your first edition. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
The art is fantastic. I love this whole concept because tabletop gaming is its own kind of art form. It's a very collaborative form of storytelling, which I'm personally super into. But I think that you have hit on that challenge that many DMs struggle with, like coming up with those initial prompts, finding something interesting to add to their game. So it's not just another beholder coming to like suck out your stats and your soul through your fingertips. It could be something else really interesting. And you are doing that lift for them and also providing visual art to go with this bit of storytelling gem.
Yeah, it's neat too because a lot of people nowadays are kind of doing games with everybody's got a laptop or a tablet at the table and things. And Shadowcat Magazine is digital,
Mm, mm.
and so the GM can print everything out if they want because everything is going to be a PDF file basically. So you could print out individual pages if you want, or you could just email people, the monster or the place and say, this is what you see. And they could pull it up on their own tablets and go, ooh, okay, that's cool. Or they could sit there and go, oh my God, that art is amazing. Whatever. I'm throwing out that last bit there. But yeah, and so it makes it so that everybody can have the experience there. And also for the GM, if they've already like a year, 2 years, 5 years into their campaign, um, I don't want to come in and say, okay, now you guys have to stop playing what you're playing. You have to switch systems entirely and just
Yeah.
do my thing now. Now they could just say, no, I could add this to whatever we're already playing because like fifth edition, for example, I'm not going to dog on fifth edition, but it's really super popular. And so a lot of third party people, third party people, huh? A lot of third party companies and things, they make stuff specifically for fifth edition, but there are basically 1,500 different systems out there, and D&D is
Yes.
just one of them.
Yes. It's currently extremely popular, and I'm very happy for all of us who like playing tabletop role playing games, roll top games. I'm
Until you take the
I
dice
love
and just roll them off the table.
right. Just roll it up. I love that it's so popular, and all of these streams and podcasts. It's really a renaissance for the tabletop experience. But there are scads and scads of gaming systems out there, and everyone has their favorite. And you can
Exactly.
always make an argument for why yours is special and the best, right? Your
Right.
favorite is precious. But I think that is really lovely is when your resources that you're creating and providing um, are, system neutral, so that everyone can have these treasures for their little game. And
Yeah.
also, let me start for a moment. Hello, everyone. Hello, Cheshire Culture, Shark, KLM. Thank you so much for joining us. And yes, yes, you did enter at the perfect time on the chat. We are talking about Chaz's wonderful magazine. There is a digital resource for people who are running tabletop role playing games, or roll top games, as I'm now calling them today.
That will become a thing. If Madame Askew says it, it will become a thing.
You're very kind. You're very kind. But no,
Yeah.
I love the whole concept. And when you were telling me about it originally, I was very excited about it, even though I don't currently have time to play any roll top games as much as I'd like to. But I love that this exists. But part of what I adore is not just it's not just the cool stats and the interesting ideas. It is the art, because you are an incredibly talented
Oh, thank you.
visual artist. And I think there is, for especially for those of us who are old school, fans who love sword and sorcery and sci-fi and cyberpunk and role playing games. There's always this visual art component that goes along with it that's very analog, by which I mean made by a human being, possibly
Yeah.
using digital tools, but you are like bringing that beautiful human art element to the table with this, where you get the story and you get your gorgeous visual art too.
Right, right. And that's really important to me. Obviously, as a professional artist, that's my primary thing. But I've also done a lot of writing too. I just never really talk about it very much. I've written some plays. I've written lots of songs with my band uh, years and years ago when I had a band. So I've done a lot of writing. And so it was a really good way for me to be able to incorporate both of those things that I really enjoy doing. Um, so for me, it's like I do a lot of the digital art, but it's all done by me. It's none of it's done AI or anything like that. Because to me that's really really important, because I want, for the people that get the magazine, I want them to really get who I am as a person,
Mhm.
and get what I am bringing to the table and what I am offering, what I am willing to give to everyone to help you with your game or your writing. Because again, it's not just for gamers. If you're a writer, you can also look at the various, different things, look at all the ideas, and pick something that you think, oh, this could be really cool, or oh, I can maybe add something like this in chapter 12, that kind of thing. So I really want to be, I guess, I want to be a very useful artist in that way, to say, I want to help you with your game and what you guys are doing, and help you to have
Mm.
a lot more fun, also to kind of get you out of your rut. Because I know as a GM, I have certain tropes that I lean on, you know.
Yes.
So
Yes.
like undead ninja, for those who have ever played my game, that's a big trope for me. I like love them for whatever reason. So and at some point they will appear in the magazine, but
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
Listen, I love that you know your tropes, that you're very aware that you have your like go-tos that you come back to all the time.
Yeah.
And um and that can be really wonderful and charming to be like, oh, here it comes. Here comes the undead ninja. It's the moment. We
Exactly.
know we're gonna get that. But it's also, you're right, as an artist, part of the joy of being in community with other artists is that collaborative element of being able to talk through what you're doing and help yourself out of the rut by talking to another artist. And we're not always able to sit down with our artist chums or our GM chums or people who are in that creative space. And so
Right.
you're providing this opportunity for collaboration through your beautiful magazine.
Yeah, that's really because it's really important to me. And again, too, it's really important to be able to kind of reach across and say, hey, I want to give you something that gets you out of your rut, but also something that maybe your players wouldn't expect. Because your players also, after a while, they get to know, where your comfort zones are. They get to know, oh, okay, this is, Chaz likes to do these certain things. So we're going to adjust our play style, and a lot of times that's a good thing, but we're going to adjust our play style because this is what Chaz likes to do. And then when you get to throw in something different that is out of left field, they're like, oh, and now you bring that excitement back into the game, you
Oh,
know?
yes. Little surprise. The
Exactly.
surprise is important in art. Many billions of years ago, as a time traveler, it's really hard to keep track of this whole time space continuum thing. But I was in a sort of lecture with an incredible linguist, and I recall him saying something about the importance of the surprise in conversation. And conversation is a very loose term here. It's more of like a interaction that's usually verbal, but can be any kind of like body language or shared discourse through whatever form. And that surprise element is what leads to humor and the creative spark and all sorts of good things. So you want a little surprise, and you're you're offering something to your fellow enthusiasts of the genre of gaming and other art forms to take a prompt and create a surprise. And I there's a joy in working with a prompt because you never know what someone's going to do with that prompt experience.
Exactly. And I mean, and that's the thing. It's like there are going to be some people who take the prompt and say, I'm just going to work with all the stuff that Chaz came up with, and I'm going to choose 3 or 4 things on this particular list, and I'm going to go with it. And that's great. But it could also be used as a way of giving yourself or getting some ideas for certain things. And you could take the prompt and make it your own thing,
Yes.
especially if you want to fold it into all of the stories that you're already telling at your table.
Yes.
Then you can say, oh, one of my players, they're having a problem with their father because their father is actually a villain and their father keeps wanting to recruit them. And then you might find something in one of those lists where you're like, ooh, I can make this could be her dad or whatever, and so,
Yeah.
and you could just take it and run with it. And I love stuff like that. I really do. As a GM, I love prompts because again, it gets me out of my comfort zone, and I'm like, ooh, I bet the players haven't done that, you know.
Yes.
So, and one other thing too, which I think is really interesting, I know that with certain games and certain gaming systems, what ends up happening is sometimes you'll get players that will say, we'll use D&D as an example because, let's face it, most of us have played it. You'll have a player or 2 or 3 that will buy the monster manual, read through it, study it. They know all the stats, they know all the things. And so it's very difficult to surprise them because it's like, oh, this monster was on page, 203. Oh, I got that one down, no problem. This is what we do, guys. And so with the magazine, it's like you can show them a picture and it's my art, so chances are they've not seen it before. And so it'll
Yes.
be like, ooh, what the heck is that? And then
Yes.
you're throwing in a bunch of other stuff where they're like, oh, hey, but you said this was a dragon. Why is it firing laser beams out of its eyes?
Laser beam death dragon.
Exactly. Exactly.
We have a great question from Cheshire, who asks, "What is the best surprise that you encountered in a game that has stayed with you, Chaz, as a GM or a player?"
Oh man, the best surprise was when the players, I had all kinds of stuff in the graveyard kind of done up, and I was all prepared for the players, but it was feeling a little bit stale to me, because it's like, oh, it's a graveyard, so there are going to be skeletons, and there's going to be this, there's going to be that. And they hear weird noises and spooky noises and things like that. And then they were like, yeah, let's not go in. we could go and do this other thing over here and still accomplish our goal. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Well, crap. And so I had to create the adventure on the fly, which, I'm good at improv, but I like to at least have a few ideas of what I want to do and where I want to go. But this
Yes.
was like, oh, I have no idea where they're going. I have no idea what they're going to do. And so it, because I had to make up everything as I went along, and because I had to basically follow them with what they wanted to do, it really taught me a really valuable lesson in that not to overplan, have some ideas, but really let them kind of guide me in terms of where they
Yes.
want to go and what they want to do. That way, it's more their game than mine. And that was a really, really important lesson. That particular session turned out really, really cool because I was surprised too. So I'm like, all right, let's see what happens.
Yes. I feel like as a GM and really as an artist, one of the best lessons is being willing to let go of your plan and to see where the thread takes you and to follow that moment of inspiration or surprise or what have you that sort of upsets your sketch, your plan. You're like, you've got an idea and you're like, oh no, something amazing is happening. And whenever I have said, oh, I'm not going to follow that amazing thing, I'm going to stick to the plan, I really lose a certain kind of magic of the moment. And I think being willing to follow that is so critical.
Yeah, it is because because it's really about the players. It's less about you and more about the players. It's like when I was an actor, for example, you go on stage, the performance is more about the audience than it is about how well I
Yes.
know my lines or how good I am at performing or whatever it is. It's always about whether or not the audience has a good time, because if they do, then you've done your job. But it's more about them. So with the players, if you think about it as a GM, understand that, yeah, you can have all of these really cool ideas and you could buy a bunch of cool stuff, such as Shadowcat magazine. You can, sorry, was that not subtle?
No, it was
Um,
perfect. It was perfect.
but you can do all the prep and you can have all of these things, but you always have to keep in mind that your players are actually taking time out of their busy schedules, out of their lives to play with you in your game. And so you want to always honor the fact that they're taking time to spend with you, and really give them, basically kind of give them their money's worth, as it were. So
I love
yeah.
that. Yeah. And also, as Anne says, role playing is about the playing,
Yes.
and playing is about allowing everyone an opportunity to have those moments of inspiration and follow those threads. We have another wonderful question from my dear chum, the Grand Arbiter. Do you have any game system limitations you find frustrating to navigate or cause you to switch systems for a particular experience?
Yeah, actually. So years and years ago, I am not a time traveler, as you could tell by my gray hair, uh, which is terribly unfortunate. Um, um, so years ago, we were playing D&D second edition, and yes, there were a lot of limitations, and it was very, very frustrating because it was very limited. I mean, everybody's paladin was like everybody else's paladin. The only difference was your magic items, and that was the only thing that really made your character different than somebody else's character. And I didn't really care for that because I thought, well, you know, it shouldn't be up to the magic item. It should just be up to what kind of training have you had? Where did you grow up? What skills do you have that are different than what that other paladin's skills are? On and on and on. And it was really frustrating to me. So my roommate at the time introduced me to Rollmaster. Rollmaster is heavily skill based. And at the time, there were like, you know, Rollmaster had like 100 skills. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I could do whatever I want. This is so cool. And they had lots of different character classes and all that. And so it really opened my eyes to being able to switch into different systems and learn about how their mechanics work, and things like that. So over the years, I've played a bunch of different systems, and actually with the group that I'm a player in, we've played 5th edition, we've played Savage Worlds, we've played Warhammer Fantasy, we've played a bunch of different other systems. And so you could see various things that, you know, oh, I like that from this system, or I like that from that system. And sometimes when you do a homebrew, which is, you know, the other thing that a lot of people do, you know, like 5th edition, for example, I love the roll with advantage and roll with disadvantage. I love that particular mechanic. I think that's really amazingly cool. So that way you don't have to do any math. You don't have to go, well, okay, you're -3 to this roll or whatever, you know, and people are like, okay, I rolled a 17. Okay, -3 plus 2 plus, you know, carry the 1. You know, you don't have to do any of that.
Right, gone are the days of Thaco. We do not need to.
Oh God, that's the other thing that was seriously frustrating about 2nd edition was Thaco. Oh my God. Anyway, I could. That's a whole nother podcast entirely.
It is. It absolutely is.
But yeah, but I love that roll with advantage and disadvantage. Roll 2d20 and choose the highest one if you're rolling with advantage. Roll 2d20, choose the lowest one if you're at disadvantage. And I love that. It's like, it's so simple and it's so neat.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about adding this or subtracting that or whatever. So I really love that mechanic. But I also really enjoyed like Warhammer Fantasy, where they said, oh, you're going into this particular profession. Well, you have to learn this skill and this skill before you can advance in this profession. You know, that kind of thing. You have to be so good at it before, you know, you get to go on and receive a new title or whatever. So stuff like that is really, it's really kind of neat. Right now, I'm running a system called The Hidden Isle. It's by Kaza Creations. They are a company out of Poland. And they use tarot cards instead of dice. It's really very, very cool. So currently my players are secret agents in a hyper modern world that I call Neo Batavia. And they, again, they use tarot cards and things like that. And the tarot is a real big part of everything, but they are also from a different dimension, and they are fairies who are in the human and mortal realm trying to save the mortal realm against the unseelie fae. So it's really fun. It's really cool. They get to drive around in Ferraris and stuff and still cast magic spells. It's awesome.
It sounds wonderfully unhinged and like an absolutely delightful playground. And I love role-playing games that allow you to sort of have a melange like that. I have a follow-up from the Grand Arbiter who, as a sort of a continuation of his previous question, is there a game system that you're just like, that one is not my system? I love so many, but this one has thwarted me too much. I don't like it. I don't want to play it. So I will confess, I have come around, for instance, but my first experience with Pathfinder left me so cold. I was like, I will never play this system again. People had to really work on me to give it a second try. So what's your like system that it just like left a bad taste in your mouth, or you had really bad experience with it?
The one that I found to be the worst was Traveler, mostly because my character died while I was rolling up my character.
No!
Yeah. because they have various charts and things like that of what happened to you in your past. And one of the things that could happen to you is that your character dies. So it was like we had spent like an hour and a half rolling up characters, and I made a bad roll, which I often do, and I'm rolling up things for my character, and my character died, and I was like, oh, and the GM was like, oh, well, that's okay, we could start over. And I was like, I've been here for an hour and a half. I am not playing this game. I'm sorry. You know, if you want to run a different system, I would be more than happy to give it a shot, but I am not playing Traveler again. So
apparently a classic traveler story. Hello, Bill. Oh my gosh. That listen, that would really put me off too.
yeah,
I at least want my character to die in a blaze of glory doing really cool things with their chums on the field of play, right? Just
exactly.
a random role is so ignominious, and we already live in the real world where weird things can go awry. uh Role playing is when we get to be cinematic and cool and live out this fantastical, story that's mythic and legendary, like dying because of a roll. Anyway,
Exactly. It's like playing a Wild West game, and you have to protect the caravan and the settlers as they travel across to Oregon, and oh, you die of dysentery, and it's like, oh well, crap. All right, that was fun, I guess. What are we
yeah,
playing next? So,
thanks. Good
yeah,
talk.
there's like no room for heroism. There's no room for any of those
Not,
things. I mean, I could see if your character dies because of something that you've done, where you're like, oh, I shouldn't have opened that room filled with undead. Okay, well, that's on me. That's my bad.
yes,
But
yes, yes.
without any choice at all, without any agency,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah. Boy, that would be honestly, that would be such a hard sell for me. And Bill is saying that this same thing happened to him in his first game. Like
yeah,
that's a game system where I'm like, probably not for me.
yeah. Pass, thanks. But
Past
Bill said it's the first Traveler game, which meant you played it again. I don't know. You're brave.
very brave, our Bill. So, but one of the things I think is so wonderful about you, Chaz, is that we've had this already absolutely brilliant conversation about role playing games and your magazine and all of these cool things you're doing with all of that. But what some people may not know, who are just meeting you this morning, is that you are bringing just this incredible arsenal of art and experience with you to this creation, not only as a GM, but as the designer and writer, principal creator of your magazine. You do gorgeous visual art. It is the reason I met you originally, because I saw your art. I was like, I don't know who this man is, but I love his art. But you're also a musician and a thespian, and you have this incredible artistic experience and journey that has brought you to this moment. And I love that, because I think that there's a real push for hyper specialization, and there's, especially on social media, there's sort of this, you have to do your bit and you do your bit, and that is how you push, because you're always doing the bit, the very narrow thing, and that's all you do, that one flavor. You're an old school artist, and I mean this in high praise, because
Oh,
I
thank you.
feel the same way, where I'm like, no, I want to do all the art things that I like. Why would I limit myself to but one art thing? My soul is made of art. I want to do all of them, and you have done so many. So what was your first artistic love? Where did your journey as an artist start?
I started, well, when I was going to school. I did a lot of music. I had a natural ear for music, and so I joined the choir on just kind of a lark in fourth grade. I was walking by a room, and there was a whole bunch of kids lined up, and I was like, "What's going on?" And it's like, "Oh, it's choir audition." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And they're like, oh, you should jump in. You should do it. And I was like, yeah, okay. Why not? So I tried it out, and the audition was super easy in that it was like, which note is higher, this note or this note?
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was like, oh, okay, this note. And so, we did that. And it's in fourth grade. It's kind of like, well, we just want to make sure that you actually have, you could actually kind of sing a little bit or whatever. So,
Right.
I did that, and I got into choir, and I loved it. And
Mm,
so from that point on, I was always in a choir throughout, elementary school, junior high school. Um, I was always singing, and then from there, I got into I played drums. I played violin in fourth grade, fourth and fifth grade, but I didn't stick with it. So nobody please ask me to play now because I've forgotten what little I knew. But I got into drumming, and then later on, I stuck with music, and I learned how to play a Middle Eastern hand drum called a doumbek, which is kind of like a
yes.
djembe. It's a drum that's kind of got like a bell shape, and I started learning how to play that, and I got really good at it. And so I've played on a bunch of people's albums. When I had my band, we were a dark fairy Celtic a cappella band that had a lot of tribal rhythm that I would play. And so from there, I wrote a lot of songs and various things like that. So music was really like my first love. But when I joined the Ren Fair, the Colorado Renaissance Festival in like 1990. And so it's like, ooh, acting. Oh, that could be kind of fun. Okay, let me try that. So I started to learn how to act as well. The music is kind of what kind of got me in a little bit, but the acting was like the thing that was like, oh, I haven't tried that. Let me do that. So I learned improv. I learned Shakespeare. I learned dramatic acting. I learned how to do various accents and things like that. And so I really just did a deep dive into all things theater. So I did a lot of street theater. I studied a lot of commedia dell'arte, which was a form of improvisational theater that was really popular in like the 1600s and 1700s, I believe. And it carried on through vaudeville. And I think vaudeville was kind of like the last gasp of commedia dell'arte. But it's the art form that originated in Italy with the masks, and they had stereotypical characters that they would put in different situations. And for people that may not really know, it's like that's pretty much where we get our common sitcoms.
Mm,
You have the same characters; they're just every week they're just put into different situations. That's exactly what Commedia dell'arte was, because they would go to every town, but they wouldn't have dialogue. They would just have movements and certain characters that they would play that everybody, no matter what town throughout Europe they went to, everybody could relate to a character of some sort. They're like, oh yeah, that guy's playing the mayor. We have a mayor like that in our town. So they didn't have to worry about the language barrier or anything like that. It was really very cool. And so I learned all about all of those kinds of things, and I really did a super deep dive into theater. But from there, I was doing those things, and then I got a job working at a place called Comeg, which was basically a German-based medical equipment company. They did a lot of arthroscopes and endoscopes and various things like that for people that do arthroscopic surgery and whatnot. And I started working there, and I was just in shipping and receiving, but I was still working at the Ren Fair, and I was doing both acting and I was doing music, because right around then is when I kind of started to form a band. And I was working in this company, and I went into my boss's office once, and he was drawing his motorcycle, but he was doing it on his computer. And I was like, "Ooh, what is that? What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm drawing my motorcycle. It's right outside." It's like, and he's showing me this really cool program called Corel Draw, which is very similar to Illustrator.
oh my gosh, Corel Draw.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. I still use it. I use it to this day.
That's
Um,
lovely.
but but he taught me how to use Corel Draw because he saw how interested I was, and he's like, "You used to draw, didn't you?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I used to draw a long time ago, but I don't really do it very much anymore." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'll teach you how to use this program." And so I started learning how to use the program, and I got really good at it, um, to the point where he's like, you should apply for the Art Institute. And I was like, okay. So I did, and I got in, and I tested out of a whole bunch of different classes so I could graduate a lot faster, and I learned how to do digital art.
Mm.
So now I'm a professional illustrator. So
And you do gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous work. Look, I cannot stress this enough to everyone. You should absolutely go to Chaz's website. I'm going to drop the link in the chat, and see his amazing art.
no, thank you.
I love your style. I'm really into a lot of the same things you're pulling your influences from. I love Art Nouveau. I'm a time traveler. I'm into steampunk and all of the sorts of like historical fantasy, alternative history, fictional worlds. I love that sort of thing. And
Yeah,
you've got like a goth sensibility, and there's cyberpunk, and there's steampunk, and this beautiful Art Nouveau influence that sort of threads through your work. But it's all very much your voice. Like I
well,
can
thank you.
tell that is a piece by Chaz when I see it. And it's never pastiche. It's always very much a you experience.
Thank you. Thank you. It's for me. I mean, the big thread for me is one. I loved Art Nouveau. My grandfather used to give me children's books when I was 3 or 4 years old, but because they were cheaper, he would get me children's books from like the 1800s and stuff like that, and the early 1900s because he could get like people were just giving them away. They're like, oh, these books are like really super old, so you can have like 5 of them for like a quarter. He's like, great. So he would give me those, and so those are the books that I grew up with, and all of those books from the late 1800s, the early 1900s, were all done by Art Nouveau artists.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned. I looked at that art and I was like, oh, I love this. Oh, I love this book, and oh, read me this story, and I want to see the pictures. And so when I went to Art Institute, I was talking to one of my professors and I said, "So tell me what this art is. What is this style?" And it's like, "Oh, that's Art Nouveau." And nobody really does that anymore, but I've always thought it was really cool. And it's like, wait, nobody does it anymore? Then right off the bat, that's like, oh, if nobody else is doing it, then I want to do it. Because that's my
Yes.
punk sensibility right there. It's like if
Yes.
everyone else is going left, I want to be the one that goes right.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, Art Nouveau was like a big thing for me. So as soon as I went freelance, as soon as I stopped working for other publishing companies and things like that and decided I wanted to work for myself, right off the bat, I was like, I'm going to be an Art Nouveau artist because nobody else is. And
Yeah.
now there are one or two other artists that
Yeah.
do that, but that was kind of a thing for me because again, it's like it's a thing that will help set me apart.
Mm.
So yeah, the punk influence in that regard, it's like artistic punk. And of
Yes.
course steampunk is that's a thing for me, and because I'm always rebelling against the system. Cyberpunk is great,
Yes.
so
We love to crush the system, or
yeah,
attempt to anyway,
yeah,
and to stand up and say, we're not into this like corporate overlord situation. We're gonna like, but pardon my language, gonna take the piss out of it a little bit. That was very much steampunk sensibility, but also we're going to look at ways of inspecting and discussing and like uh, breaking apart these concepts in our fiction and our media. And so, yeah, steampunk is like very much there, but so was Art Nouveau. The original movement was sort of like very arty, very bohemian, even
yeah,
though it was used so much in marketing. Um, and like a lot of our examples of Art Nouveau come out of these gorgeous like posters and marketing pieces. It was
Right.
very much like a small press experience, and like breaking off the shackles of the patron system, and you know, moving away from the academy at the time. And so it's like this very interesting radical bit of art even in the time in which it was born. But I
Exactly.
am I am so distracted. You have a cat.
I
We
do.
cannot we cannot let this moment with the cat pass. We must take a moment for the cat. Hello, Kitty.
This is Sif. Sif is she's a lot of times our shoulder kitty, but
Oh,
she very much likes to cuddle, and she's very friendly. She's very cool, and she's very kind.
oh.
So anytime either of us, my wife or I, are stressed out about anything, Seth will come up and want to cuddle and want to hug and various things like that. She doesn't like to be picked up. So this is her way of being picked up because it's all under her control. She's very
Oh,
punk this way, you know?
she on her terms, only
Yes,
on her
exactly.
terms. Uh,
Exactly.
she's a beautiful girl. I love cats, and I'm particularly fond of black cats. So, um, yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Sif, for sharing yourself with all of us. And so we've got a question. No, take your time. I'm just like rambling on, please.
Well, the one thing I was going to say about, excuse me, about Art Nouveau was that no artists were actually doing any commercial work before Art Nouveau came around. Excuse me.
Oh yes, please. This is why we have to have tea, because we're going to talk so much that we get parched.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
And that was also kind of a punk sort of movement too, because before then, if an artist didn't have a patron, they weren't making any money. And as soon as companies were like, hey, we publish books, we think it would be really neat to have an actual image on the cover of the book because we think it would help sell the book.
Mhm.
And the artists were like, I don't know, are you going to pay me? And they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, we'll pay you. It was like, great, I'm in.
Money?
No
Yes,
starving
please.
artist. Exactly. Exactly. And of course, there were other artists and other people are like, oh, art should just be for the rich and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, Alphonse Mucha or Mucha, however you want to pronounce his name, big, huge influence for me. His whole thing was, I want everyone to have my art. I want my art to be in everyone's homes, not just the rich. And so when someone came up and said, hey, we bake cookies and we put our cookies in a metal, tin, container, and we'd love to have your art all over that. And he was like, oh, well, then, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And so then people would buy the cookies and then they just keep the tin because it was so beautiful.
Yes.
And
And people are still collecting those tins when they find them in good repair, because they're stunning. We Packaging does not look like that anymore. Those tins were real. They were in fact works of art. Absolutely remarkable.
absolutely.
Um, and I love that about Art Nouveau, and also this sort of like continuation of that ethos of like rebelling a bit against some of the status quo socially. And I love this that Justin says, we don't like taste dictated to us. No,
Yes.
especially not around these parts. We want to have a good conversation about it and plow our own road, as it were.
Exactly. And that's what that's the thing I love about where we are now as a society, is that there is so much art out there that if you find art that you really love, you can really do a deep dive into it and really explore it quite a lot. I am now finding just a lot of different artists that were really popular around 1910, 1920, 1930, who were really doing just some really amazing stuff. But the thing is that we never heard of them, you know.
Right.
And I'm finding these guys in there. They did cartoons for newspapers or whatever, and
Yeah.
they were really popular for like 10 years, and then they you know, this one woman, I think her name is Ethel Hayes, she did a lot of comics based on the flapper movement of the 20s, and she would do these little comics based on that. But her line art was just beautiful.
Mm, mm.
But I had never heard of her. I had never seen her stuff. And I just happened to be going on Pinterest, and there was her work. And I was like, oh, this is really amazing. And then later on, of course, as what happened then, you know, she was a woman. She kind of broke the mold a little bit in terms of being an illustrator that was actually popular. And then she went and got married. And of course, you know, her husband was like, well, now you don't need to work anymore. And she's like, okay, I guess. And so she stopped. I think she painted some children's books
Mm,
after that. She was also a very accomplished painter. And that was really cool. But I loved the comic strips so much.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's, but you when you start to do a deep dive, especially in the Art Nouveau movement and how many other people it influenced, it's really amazing. Like if you go into the late 60s, early 70s, you'll find Jim Fitzpatrick, who was an Irish Art Nouveau artist. He's still alive. I believe he's still doing work. But his
Right.
work was just amazing because he did Art Nouveau, but he incorporated a lot of Celtic knotwork
Oh,
into it.
gorgeous. Oh, I've
It,
definitely seen his work.
yeah, Jim Fitzpatrick. It's his work is amazing. He did a few album covers for Thin Lizzy, and then he did Irish folklore books and things like that that were completely illustrated, and they're just gorgeous, gorgeous books. But he was a big influence for me too. I will never be able to copy or even come close to what he does, but just the ideas that he gave me were just amazing. And
Mm,
so when you really look around, you start to really find a lot of really amazing influences, and you should definitely take them and steal what you can and incorporate
yes,
that into your own stuff.
yes, 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 yes. Seize the influences, let it percolate inside your brain and see what comes out that's uniquely yours.
Yeah,
Bill has a compliment for you. He says the influence of Art Nouveau on your art is very clear and very striking. Your art is very striking,
thank you,
my dear
Bill.
friend. And Cheshire has to, coming back to your wonderful cat, Sith, best name ever. Yes, this wonderful cat, gorgeous cat. We loved your cat.
So
Thank
I
you.
will have to correct you a little bit. It's not Sith, it's Sif,
Sith.
Sif,
Oh,
after
like,
the Viking goddess.
oh, she's a goddess. Of course
Yes,
she
well, of course
is.
she is.
Of course she
But
is. Absolutely. She's a cat,
Sith
of
is still a
course.
very cool name.
Yes, yes. So people are going to have the opportunity to meet you at Wild West Con if they have not met you at TusCon, which is where we connected. You were an artist guest of honor there. You've been coming and vending and paneling there for years now. I've lost track. It's been quite a while.
Yeah,
We've done panels together, but now you're going to be at Wild West Con. This is your first time, and you're
yeah.
bringing this gorgeous Art Nouveau influenced steampunk art with you. And I'm hugely into this because I think there is this kind of vision of steampunk that gets a little rooted in very much like an 1860s, 1870s kind of vibe, and can be very narrow in artistic influence, which is
Right,
not to deride anyone's art, but I like that you've expanded that into the Art Nouveau, which is, it's during the era of the 19th century that I'm like deeply fascinated by, because you've got Art Nouveau, you've got the aesthetic dress movement that's marching right along with that. You've all of that coming out of the, you know, um, pre-Raphaelite movement and
yeah.
those complicated but very talented artists. And you've also got this sort of like arts and crafts movement happening where people are like, we want to make art that's functional in the home, usable by people, not just for the wealthy. And we want
Right.
your home to be artful. And this democratizing of art in that way, I think, is really gorgeous and something that's beautiful to lean into with steampunk art, because it's very anti-imperialist in its way.
It is. It is. One of the things that we like to say is the 1800s happened everywhere. It
Yes,
wasn't just
yes,
Victorian England. It happened everywhere.
yes,
So whatever other influences you want to pull in, it begins to really make steampunk a genre for everyone, not just a certain number of people, or a certain culture of people. I did an Oracle deck uh, in 2018, at the very tail end of 2018. I did an Oracle deck called the Ashelon Oracle deck. There are 52 cards. It's steampunk and fantasy, and I pull from a lot of different cultures to create characters for each of the cards. And I was very, very, well, I still am. I'm very, very proud of how it all turned out. And it's really, I don't know, it's my way of wanting to invite people to imagine, no matter where you come from, no matter what country you were born in, to imagine that you too can be part of this really cool, really wonderful steampunk aesthetic, the genre, because it really is about saying no to the system. Especially when you look at how things were back then, the imperialism and everything like that. Like, we want to go to other countries, we want to learn their language, we want to learn their culture so that we can conquer them. And it's like, no, what if they resisted? What if the Native American Indians had essentially pushed back against imperialism by using Native American magics and various things like that? What if they had decided, no, we're going to defend the entire country? And now, if you want to come in, you have to get our permission. What
yes.
would that world look like now? How would America look, here now in 2025? How would it look? So, it's neat to think about those kinds of things, because it's like, how would we be affected artistically? How would this, what would our worldview be like had everyone been able to maintain their own their their own countries and things, their own way of life, the way that they want to pass laws and various things like that, the way they want to run things? What would the world be like? And so for me with the deck, that was my way of saying every character that I draw has power and agency. And I don't know, I don't know, I love that. I absolutely love it. So
I love that kind of what if and possibility. And it's something I'm very drawn to in steampunk as a genre specifically, but in general, in lots of like historical fantasy and alternative histories, that draws me in. It's part
yeah,
of why I love Nisi Scholl's work. I absolutely, if you have not read P. Jelly Clark, you need to so much.
yeah,
He's amazing. Um, and our mutual friend, David Lee Summers, you've done some covers for his works,
I have.
the reissues of his Scarlet Order books, and his Clockwork Century steampunk novels do not completely rewrite the colonial history of the world, but they challenge it. And they challenge some historical moments. And I love the way David has handled those sorts of moments where he says, "Yes, but what if?
Yeah, he's
What if this?"
wonderful.
He's
He's wonderful.
delightful.
I loved working with him. He's really a very cool guy. Any artists out there that do covers, if ever you can find clients like David Summers and people like that, you hold on to them with both hands because those guys are very rare. But David
Yeah,
is a wonderful, wonderful person, and he writes amazing stuff. So
he does. He's an absolute gem. We've had I've featured so many of his books for our book club over the years, and I'm a little bit spoilt because I used to be able to have him come and visit us in person when we did in-person book club, and so we could just sit around and talk about his books with him, and that was really delightful.
yeah,
But he's a real gem of a human, and your collaboration with him to do these book covers and to so he could re-release his books. It's really beautiful work, and
thank you.
again, it's so wonderful to see your influence come through. Like, hello, Kumi. Kumi says thank you. We like working with good artists. Also, Kumi, it's so good to see you, my friend. Kumi, who is David Lee Summers' wonderful spouse and an absolute gem in her own right. Hello, my friend.
Absolutely, she is. She
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
yeah,
she's always been really kind to me and really wonderful. Um, and doing book covers is oh, thank you. I hope to meet you too, Bill. Um,
yes.
and it really is a collaboration. I'm working with an author right now. I can't talk about the project yet, but
Of course.
um, it's been a really neat collaboration. But it has to be a collaboration. It can't be one person saying, "Well, you just draw what I tell you to, and that's it,"
Mm,
or the artist going, "Well, I'm just going to create a vision and hopefully it matches your story."
yes.
There's got to be a collaboration there. And when you have a really nice collaboration, a really good collaboration, then everything shines. The story is now enhanced because of the cover, but the cover is also enhanced because of the story, and it just makes a really together you are creating art, and
Mm.
I love that.
I am obsessed with the collaborative process as an artist and with fellow artists. And I keep coming back to this idea in all of my interviews, but also just in general in my own artistic pursuits, that art is better when you have the opportunity. Maybe you aren't specifically doing a joint project, but just to collaborate in some degree by talking about your project or by doing a project together or through the commission process. But the conversation part, where we are chatting about projects and the artistic process and our influences and everything together, that is such a gorgeous intersection where inspiration flourishes. And I love that so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, it really does make the entire process just so cool, because again, artistically speaking, I can get into a rut as well in that regard.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing, in terms of book covers, because it gets me out of my normal thing. I've never done the same book cover type twice. Everybody I work with is different. Everyone I work with has different ideas and different sensibilities. And like it was different working with, like, say, Jan Gephardt, for example, than it was working with um, uh, a lot of the other people. Now I'm drawing a blank. I've done
Course.
so many. I've done like hundreds of book covers, so it's like pulling one. I'm like, I'm on the spot. But I've worked with so many other people, and everybody's different. Everybody has different things that they're doing and wanting to bring forth. And so it's always a challenge for me, and it always makes me want to up my game. But that collaborative processing is incredibly important. Otherwise, I'd be back where I was 10 years ago, and that's not where I want to be. I want to continue to move forward.
No, I think art is sort of about evolving, ever evolving, and challenging yourself. and your preconceptions. At least that's how I approach my artistic experience. And I like to say I'm not competitive with other people, but I am very competitive with myself. So I
Yeah.
look at my past work and I'm like, well, that was nice, but what's next? And what more can I do? And how can I push myself? And sometimes to the grand arbiter's despair, honestly, because he's like, look, what you're doing is we could take a moment and just enjoy what you've done. It's nice. It doesn't always have to be this always pushing, but I'm like, but doesn't it? I love, part of me just loves that constant challenge to myself. It is also a bit exhausting, but like
Yeah,
trying to push myself forward and hone my skills and always be open to learning and new influences, right? And
exactly. But you do bring up a really interesting point. Um, I was just at the Superstars Writing Conference a few weeks ago here
yes.
in Colorado,
Oh my
and
goodness. I
yeah,
know a lot of people who went to that writing conference. Yeah.
exactly. So uh, the thing that one of the panels that I attended, they talked a lot about celebrating the little victories, taking the time to look at what you've just done and celebrate it and say, wow, that was really, man, I'm really proud of this. You don't necessarily want to rest on your laurels, but you do want to take that time to be able to say and stop and just celebrate just a little bit.
Yes.
Take yourself out to coffee, crack open that 12-year-old bottle of scotch or
Oh,
something like that and just have a
yes.
shot or something. Because I am very much like you in that I am constantly motivated to improve my art, like
Mm.
constantly. There's always more that I could do. I can always get better, and I'm constantly trying to push myself to get better because I want to honor the craft that is illustration, that is art, that is creativity. I really want to honor that. So I don't feel like I can rest on my laurels. However, I also spent a lot of time not resting at all, not taking
Mm.
the time. I would win awards and people were like, oh my God, that's so cool. Hey, you got nominated for like a Bram Stoker award. Congratulations, and blah, blah, blah. And I was always like, yeah. But that was yesterday. I need
Yeah.
to keep going. And so I would never actually stop to celebrate anything. I mean, I've got ribbons, I've got all kinds of stuff. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate the award, but I'm working on this new thing now. So, I never stopped. And it's important. The forward momentum is important, but
Mhm.
to be able to take even like an evening and say, I just did this thing. It was a lot of work. I'm going to take some time and go out to a movie or just whatever.
Yeah.
It's I think that's also really important so that you can keep track of how far you've come, because I think that's an important part of that journey. It's not always about the journey. Sometimes you have to stop, get off of the road, and look at the beautiful scenery before you pass it by and keep going.
Savor those moments. And
Exactly.
I know you are not speaking to me specifically, but it is something I personally struggle with also, is stopping and pausing and savoring the accomplishment and savoring that current moment. There's a lot of push in our society to always be hustling and always be grinding and always be like constant work, right?
Hmm.
And there's something very deliciously rebellious, revolutionary about leaning into some of that old bohemian vibe of, yes, but let's celebrate this art moment. Let's sit around and talk about what we did. Let's pause. Maybe we'll go to a dinner party and we'll just read poetry and talk about art, and that'll be nice.
Exactly. It's for me. I know it's a little different for you being British, but for me, it's um, it's part of that American culture that can be so very destructive. The idea that you constantly have to hustle, you constantly have to go, 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 go. But and it's destructive. And you don't find out until you get older to understand that all of that push is all propaganda. It's all like, well, this is America, and this is who we are as Americans, and blah 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 blah. And I'm not saying I'm anti-American, but I am anti-propaganda. I am anti, you know, constantly having to hustle all the time, because what ends up happening is you will get to a point where you never feel like you are good enough because
Yes.
you're constantly working to get better. You never stop to go, I'm actually pretty good at this, because that constant hustle always makes you feel like you're not there yet, wherever there is. That
Yes.
you're not working hard enough. Oh, you put in 60 hours this week. Well, you didn't put in 80. Oh, you took time to sleep. You can sleep when you're dead. And it's that whole idea of, who are you hustling for? Take that time, take a step back and say, you know what, I put in my 8 hours, or I put in 9 hours or 10 hours. I deserve to take the rest of the night off, to just do whatever I want and relax. There's nothing wrong with relaxing. So,
I've heard that.
yeah, I know, right? It's a weird theory that everybody else in every other country understands except for us. So, in Sweden, they have this thing called lagom or lagom, lagom. It's the not too much, not too little. When you work your 8 hours. You work hard, you do the thing, but as soon as 5 o'clock hits, you're done. Now your boss pushes you out the door and says, don't you need to go spend time with your friends? Don't you need to go spend time with your family? Go, 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 go. Do that thing. The work-life
Wild.
balance there is incredibly real. They don't punish you for wanting to take time off. They don't punish you for wanting to say, well, as soon as 5 o'clock hits, my shift is done. If you have a bunch of work that you need me to do, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it on Monday.
Oh, wild.
I know.
Delightful. May we all have that sensibility going forward. It's,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah.
about having that really nice balance, about being able to just take a step back and go, there are other aspects of my life that are incredibly important also. If you are married, or you have a relationship with a significant other, that's really important. If your parents are still around, that's really important to be able to spend time with them if you can. If you have children, it's really incredibly important to take the time to spend time with your children. Or if you're into nature, go outside and walk around and look at nature and check things out. Spend time with your friends. Spend time playing role-playing games.
Right?
That kind of thing. I know.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Uh,
it's
it's so
important.
critical. It's so critical. And Chaz, you have made the argument so gorgeously, and you know, you're an excellent advocate for taking this time. I think it's so important for literally everybody, but in the arts in particular, if you don't take time to pause and experience other things, and to let your mind sort of cogitate on the world and just kind of, I mean, it gets a bad name, but daydream, then you will start to lose that reservoir of inspiration, because you need the space for the spark to occur. And if
Yeah,
you're exhausted and hungry and working all the time and never get to enjoy art or participate in art or just experience the world, how are you going to keep making art, right? So it, this
exactly.
is a wonderful reminder for all of us.
It is. It is.
Thank
And
you.
it's something that I've had to. I had people throughout the years, and this is like, I'm not sitting on my mountain going, yes, I am the reservoir of all things that are wisdom. I had people telling me this over the course of the years, ever since I was freelance.
Yeah.
And I never took it seriously until I really started to examine things like, I was getting burnt out and
Yeah.
various things like that. And realizing that, oh, I actually took an entire day off. Oh my God, that was really nice. And now I feel really energized. And now I want to go and create more art. But this is great. I should take days off more often. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. How nice. How
Yeah,
delightful. How novel.
how novel, how novel. So yeah, and it's, and again, it was just like, that's when all the advice that I had been given really hit me hard to go, people have been telling me to kind of take some time for myself to do other things for years, and I never listened. And now I get it. Now I understand. If you don't have that balance, there's no way that you can become better at what you do. If you don't have that time for you, your heart, your soul, your spirit to re-energize, you'll run that battery dry.
Absolutely.
So it's really, really important.
Yeah. I agree. I agree, Chaz.
Yeah.
I I I am on the same page. I do struggle, to be honest, and Bill is like, I love this. Bill, you're very kind. Bill says it's also exhausting for the rest of us just watching all the stuff you're doing. Thank you, Bill. I struggle with this so much. It's really hard. So if you're an artist or any kind of creative who's listening to this now or later and you're like, that sounds nice, but how do you achieve it? I mean, clearly, Chaz, you are a working independent artist. You've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for a long time. Like all things in art, it's something where you have to continue to practice and noodle with it and see if you can find that balance. It's sort of a constant struggle to find the way to balance these things. But it's really important to strive for that space to rest, to appreciate, to celebrate your works, and then to come back to the table to create more beautiful things.
Yeah. One of the things that I do as an artist, and I'll throw this out really quick. One of the things that I do to relax is I look at art.
Yes.
I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Reddit, and I've basically all the subreddits that have to do with art and illustration and things like that. I'm probably a member of all of those. I've joined all of those subreddits, but I look at art all the time because it inspires me. I have a ton of art books. So if I
Yeah.
want to just go purely analog, what? Um, I pull out one of my art books and I just start going through it by some of my favorite artists and stuff. If you're an author, one of the best ways that you can decompress and relax is by reading. Read some of your favorite authors because that inspires you.
Yeah.
And so there's I don't know, there's so much beauty in the world, but if you never take the time to look at it, you miss it. You miss all of it. So I don't know.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. No, Chaz, my home is full of art. I have art on all my walls. I have scats of books. I take a lot of sort of reinvigoration and respite from experiencing art created by others as well. And I think that's
Yeah.
really excellent and beautiful advice for everyone who's like, how do I do this? How do I maintain my creative drive and also thread this needle in a world that doesn't really provide a lot of support for the arts, decreasingly so. That's like, there's been, listen, everyone, we have gotten very close to some very political discussion today. We haven't called things out, but we've been talking around this subject. And this is very much, I think, on the mind of many artists right now. But Chaz, you've had wonderful advice, incredible insights to share with us today.
Hmm.
And everyone, you have a few minutes to get in another question for Chaz if you have another question for our dear friend. But in just a minute or two, I'm going to, speaking of other artists, I'm going to pull from one of my favorites, very arcane, French literary figures, Marcel Proust, and I'm going to share the Proust questionnaire with Chaz, my take on it. I love finishing up with this. But before we get into it, you all have an opportunity to ask any questions. Also, this is my reminder to go stop by Chaz's wonderful website, look at his gorgeous art, and also check out his fantastic gaming magazine. It's so gorgeous. I love the Shadow Cat magazine.
Thank you.
You can subscribe. You can also subscribe to the newsletter, which I
Yeah.
definitely recommend doing all of these things
If you
because,
join the newsletter, you will get a teaser edition of the magazine for free right in
yes,
your inbox. So where the regular magazine has 3 monsters, 3 NPCs, 3 items, and 3 places, the teaser magazine that you get as a free gift has one of each of those, and they're different than what's in the first issue. And the only way you get it is by joining the newsletter. So
yes,
if you're not sure, you could get the teaser, try it out at your table, see if you like it, and if you like it and it really adds and enhances your game, then consider buying the magazine. The second issue will be out before the end of March.
oh, that's so excellent. So Wild West Con friends, you will get to meet Chaz at the convention. You are vending. And are you doing any panels or anything at Wild
I
West Con?
I am not sure. They were pretty full when we got in.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I can at least get on one or two because I really love doing panels. But
You're a wonderful
oh
panelist.
well, thank you so much. So are you.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
so and so I don't know because we kind of got in a little late.
Mm, mm.
But if it turns out to be a really cool convention, and which I have no doubt that it will, and we get to meet lots of really interesting and cool people, especially people who we met through TusCon,
Yes.
then we will absolutely come back for sure. And next time, I'll get in early enough to be able to get in on some of those panels.
Yes.
So,
Wonderful.
but we
Uh,
will have a booth. We will have a booth, and I'll be selling art. My wife Carolyn will have her books because she is an author,
yes.
an award-winning author, by the way, and she has some really cool stuff, including a steampunk fantasy trilogy called Galacel's Tale. And it's the first thing that we worked on when we first got together, and through the creation of the first book is where Carolyn and I fell in love, and so now we're married. So
Oh, Chaz, your meet cute was through literature.
it
I
was.
love that so much.
How
And
artistic, right?
how beautifully artistic. And also, like, I know you said that you draw a lot of inspiration from Mucha. We were talking about Franz Mucha earlier, and I love his art so much. But he's also a really wonderful figure in his personal private life and very bohemian. He wore a
Yeah,
lot of smocks. He was really into aesthetic dress and dress reform. But his spouse, his partner, the woman he spent his life with, was also an artist and creative. And so I love that you and your spouse also share this creative partnership. Strangely, uh, I do always chat with both of you at conventions. I always come to your booth and like monopolize your time for like 5 or 10 minutes just to talk art and life. And then I'm like, oh, I'll buy another Oracle deck because I keep
yeah.
buying one for myself and then giving it to someone else. So
Oh,
I've
nice.
yet to
Thank you.
keep one for myself. One of these days, I will have given them all away and I will keep the final one. But I haven't had the pleasure of really talking to your wife about her series, and so thank you for plugging that.
Of
And
course.
we love steampunk reads around here. We're very keen on books, and so I'm always happy to introduce people to another new to them author to include in their steampunk reading. So connect with Chaz, find out more about Chaz's wonderful wife. Please share again for all of us the name of her series so people can keep
It's
their
called
eyes.
the Gallicel Tale, Gallesel. And you can find it on Amazon. Uh, and the first book is called Dien Vek, Dien space capital VEK. It's Elven. Don't worry about it. Uh, but it's steampunk fantasy, and essentially, the first story is an elven princess comes into the mortal realms as a diplomat and discovers that Queen Victoria is actually the villain.
Oh, well, classic.
Of course,
The wonderful. I
a
love
tale as
this.
old as time.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
that Queen Vicky. She was a minx, getting up to so much.
She
Uh,
was.
so this has been wonderful, Chaz. I'm going to dive into the Proust questionnaire. I don't see any questions from anyone else, so here we go. My first question for you is, what are your favorite qualities in a human being?
Favorite qualities in a human being: compassion, integrity, um, and kindness.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. Excellent. Those are absolutely in my tops as well. Those are key qualities. What do you appreciate the most in your friends?
I appreciate the fact that my friends are also very creative in their own ways, um, that they accept me as who I am, and they don't seek to try to change me or make me into something else that I'm not. And I appreciate them for those same things. And we have a lot of things in common. We both love, superhero movies and various things like that, and fantasy movies and sci-fi and stuff. And that gives me things to talk about with my friends. So, because I
Nice.
mean, you could love a lot of really cool things, but if there's no one to talk to about it, it's kind of a drag.
It
But
is an
that's what
absolute
friends are
drag.
for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good conversation. I love that.
Exactly. Exactly.
What is a virtue you strive for the most in yourself?
Ooh, uh, that's a bit of a tough one. I think at the end of the day, I want to be known as someone who was kind, full of integrity, and very creative, um, and that I tried in my own way to help to bring beauty into the world when there were so many people that were trying to crush it.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Excellent. What is your ideal way to spend an afternoon?
Hmm. Creating art, drawing. But if I'm not drawing, then watching a really cool movie with my wife or with really great friends, and just really just having fun, having really great conversations with people. I
Mhm.
really do enjoy that quite a lot. So
Yeah. Yes.
things that feed my soul.
I love that. Chaz, I think both you and I really like being around people. So it's a very shared aesthetic there. I'm like,
It
ah,
is,
yes,
which
time
is
with
weird
friends.
being an introvert because I'm definitely an introvert, but I am a socially functioning introvert, meaning I could be in public and I don't uh, shy away from that, but
Mm,
I recharge my batteries by just kind of doing my own thing. So,
yeah, I love that. All right. What is your idea of happiness?
hmm, my idea of happiness is to live in a world where we all celebrate our differences. We celebrate our individual talents. We find value in everything that everyone brings into the world. That we don't place well, this talent is more important than that talent, or this thing is better than that thing. Um, Also, where money is not a thing, money is not important. Who people are is the thing that's important. So for all those people who are really good people, who are kind people, who are trying to go out into the world to do the right thing and to do things that benefit humanity, those people are the people that are valued. You're not valued just because you have billions of dollars or just because you just happen to have some position of power. You are valued by being who you are.
I love
So,
that.
yeah,
So
the
we
more
both
love
want
you
to run
bring,
away.
love is the currency, huh?
We both want to run away to Star Trek together as well. I'm
Yes,
hearing.
yes. That's one of the reasons I love Star Trek so much.
So good. Um, all right. What is your idea of misery?
My idea of misery is being surrounded by people who objectify you, who
Mm,
only want you around because you can make them money or because you can do something for them. But at the same time, they're not doing anything for you.
mm,
So essentially, being in a situation where you are a thing that provides value for someone else, but you are not yourself um, a human being deserving of respect, valued for the love that you could bring into the world. You're just a thing to them. To me, that's misery.
that is misery. That's such a profound answer. That's beautifully profound and also the worst situation.
Yeah, I've been in that situation before a few times, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone, to be
No,
honest.
no.
There are certainly worse things for sure, but for
It's
me and my experience, that's one of the things that I was really hated. You strive to be talented, you strive to be really good at what you do, whatever that happens to be. Um, but to know that there are people out there that just want to take what you can do for them and use it to enrich themselves without giving you anything in return, that's the worst.
it is the worst and not it's not cool.
No,
Um
no, it's not.
so to move from that, your depths of misery,
Yeah,
if
yes, please.
yes,
Because now I'm thinking about it, going, oh,
no, it's terrible. So moving from that, if you had a motto, what would it be?
hmm. I've had a lot over the years. Um, I have a couple. One is 10% of life is what happens to you. The other 90% is what you choose to do about it.
Oh,
The other motto I have is it's not about what you sell or whatever service you provide. People buy why you do it, not what you
mm,
do. So in
mm,
other words, your brand has to be something that really speaks to the heart of who you are.
mm,
So if you are all about bringing love and art and creativity into the world, that has to be your top priority over everything else, because then it doesn't really matter what you do, what you sell, what you create. You could create jewelry for a year and then later on turn around and create 2D art or write a play or
yeah,
whatever it is. No matter what you do, as long as you're bringing love into it, that's what people gravitate towards. Um, that's what people want. At the end of the day, they want love. So
mm,
yeah,
that's beautiful. That's a really good, motto for artists everywhere to
it's
hold on
very
to.
long-winded though. I don't know. You
It
could write that down.
it is. It's a plaque. It's a plaque that you put on the wall in frame, maybe a nice little Art Nouveau frame.
Yes,
It's good.
yes. Just say
Um,
people want love, and that
people want
that'll
love.
be it. Yes.
There you go. Boom. Pithy.
Boom.
What is your favorite swear?
Can I say it?
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Fuck. That's my
Yes,
favorite. It's so descriptive and it describes so many different moods,
yes.
so many different. It encompasses all of the various emotions that you can have,
It's
and
very versatile.
it's incredibly versatile. I love it. I absolutely love it. So I try not to say it publicly overly much, but it does slip out.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know that I've ever said it at my mother's house out of respect to my mom,
Mm.
but you know, but if I were to say it, then I think she'd be like, "Yep, I agree." So
It,
yeah,
you would save it for a very potent moment. It would just be
exactly,
right. Yeah.
exactly. So
That's I don't have your same discipline there.
I
I have a very potty mouth when I'm not in a public space. Terrible.
get
Um,
it. I totally
I'm
get
like
it.
a sailor, honestly. So, and this
Well,
is my
sometimes that's
last.
very appropriate, so it's
Oh,
okay.
well, that's true. It's true. Yeah, ships ahoy. So this is my last question for you, and then we'll wrap up our wonderful conversation today. Um, was inspired really by all the authors and wonderful writerly guests I've had on. But I think as someone who helps create story driven prompts and also collaborates with authors and then creates such stunning visual stories with your art, this
Thank you.
applies to you too. What is your favorite adjective?
Hmm. I have. Oh man, that's a good question. I think right now, today, it's awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome is a really good adjective, and it's also another really versatile sort of
Yes.
sort of word. But yeah, awesome is a
Awesome.
really good adjective for me. I use it all the time.
It has a wonderful mouthfeel to it as well. So,
It does.
I'm always looking for words that not only express a thing but also feel good to say,
Yeah.
and which is not a personal hang up. Chaz, this has been an incredible conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us to chat about art and so many permutations of art, but also your wonderful magazine, the Shadow Cat magazine. The
Oh,
first
thank
edition is out now, and you can go to the website, sign up. The next edition will be out before the end of March. If you're into tabletop role playing games or roll top games, uh,
you.
if you are keen on prompts for your writing or other artistic endeavors, this magazine is a wonderful, wonderful resource for you.
Thank you for
Otherwise,
having me on. I really
yes,
appreciate the
my
invite.
pleasure.
We've been friends for a while,
Yes,
and I always enjoy being on panels with you and
thank you.
all of the turtle society, as it were.
Yes,
And I
we
think all of you guys are just wonderful, wonderful people.
thank you.
And I love your fans, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. And as you said, this has been a really awesome conversation.
It has, it has. Let's do it again. And Chaz, thank you for your time this morning. Everyone who's been listening, thank you so much for being here and supporting us and making this possible. All of our virtual content would not be possible without our incredible, wonderful, stalwart Patreon community. All of our Patreon subscribers are really the fuel that makes the airship go for us and keeps our teapots steeping away. So thank you, Patreon subscribers. If you would like to support us, Patreon is the best way to do so. So please consider joining our Patreon. And as a word, supporting artists, one of the best things you can do for them is just go out, share their art, tell your friends about it. So if you enjoyed Chaz as much as I did today, please go out and share Chaz's work. Follow him on social media. He's on Blue Sky.
I
So
am.
am I. You can find us both there. And you can find us both at Wild West Con at the end of this month. Please do not tell me how soon it is. I have too much work to do. But we'll see you at Wild West Con. In the
Yeah.
meantime, please remember to treasure yourselves as I treasure you. Go out there, wash your hands, take your vitamins and minerals, stay hydrated, drink the good tea, wear a tiara to go and buy expensive eggs. If the eggs are going to cost a fortune, look like you live in a mansion while you're buying them. Have fun with it. Life is complicated, but it would be impossible without you. So please take care of yourselves so
Yeah.
we can continue to have grand adventures together. Chaz, thank you again. This has been stupendous. Everyone, have a great morning, and I'll see you Tuesday on Twitch for our Stitch and Twitch. For those of you in Discord, we'll be having our crafternoon in just a few hours. So I'll see you there for some more art and nonsense. And we'll see you next Friday for Friday tea. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.